To make the young master of the capital initiate a divorce, I sent someone to seduce him. But he remained completely unmoved. Seeing that my crush was about to start dating, I got anxious and directly proposed a divorce. He looked at me deeply and smiled slightly. "Oh, what did I do wrong that you want a divorce?" When he looked at me like that, the sense of oppression was strong. I was a bit scared but still bravely said, "You deserve better." He laughed, a bit eerily. The next day, looking at the iron chain on my foot, I fell into deep thought. My husband, Andrew Stone, is the young master of a wealthy family in the capital. Marrying him was completely an accident. At that time, he was one of my blind date candidates. But I didn't like him at all. He is the very serious and proper type, looking very mature, 10 years older than me. He is quite good-looking, with an excellent family background. Logically, if he took a fancy to me, I should be grateful. My parents were eager to pack me up and send me to his bed. But he wasn't my type. I was scared when I saw him. If I were with him, I would feel like I was marrying an elder, similar to a school dean. Moreover, we had nothing in common. More importantly, the person I wanted to marry was Albert Smith. Albert Smith is the illegitimate son of the Smith family. His status is low, looked down upon by the upper-class wealthy families. But I think he is much better than those so-called legitimate young masters. He is gentle, polite, hardworking, and helpful. Being with him feels like a refreshing breeze. He is an excellent senior, 1 year older than me, and is my crush. He was taken back by the Smith family at the age of 13. Since then, his grades have always been excellent. After entering university and joining the family business, he started to shine. I silently watched him all this time. Actually, we are somewhat alike. The similarity is that he is not valued, and neither am I. Every time I saw him being neglected, I felt we shared the same fate. Because of this, we became friends. He is very inspirational, always telling me to study hard and encouraging me to be confident. So I really liked him. But he didn't like me. Or rather, he didn't like anyone. After I went to university, I wanted to confess to him. But he rejected many people. In school, no one cared about the difference between wealthy families and illegitimate children. He is good-looking and has a good temper, so many girls liked him. But he said he didn't date, he wanted to focus on his career first. He told me this himself. At that time, I asked him, "Do you have someone you like?" He shook his head directly. "No, someone like me, busy with studying and working all the time, has no time to like anyone." I heard from my family that he actually wants to achieve something first, so he can find a marriage partner who will be helpful to him. Because the Smith family has serious power struggles. Not only does he have to compete with his half-brothers, but his dad also has to compete with his uncles. Old Mr. Smith values the abilities of his sons and grandsons. It's like when an emperor passes the throne, he not only looks at the abilities of his sons but also at the abilities of his grandsons. So, Albert was brought back. I definitely can't meet the standards of being a virtuous wife and capable mother, the type of headmistress who can skillfully manage everything. I am the 5th child in my family. Although I am my father's legitimate child, my father has a bunch of illegitimate children too. Among my full siblings, there are 6 of us. I am stuck in the middle, neither loved by my father nor my mother, and I have average grades and abilities. At that time, I evaluated my own worth and concluded that if Albert wanted to inherit the Smith family's fortune, he would not choose me. Sigh. I was heartbroken for a while. I initially thought, whatever. After all, there is no love in wealthy families. Even if I were with him, we might end up loathing each other. Besides, he definitely doesn't like me. I've been by his side for so long. If he had any interest in me, he would have confessed by now. But I was still a bit young then. And I was unwilling to give up. Because after my blind date with Andrew Stone, he asked me out twice. I refused both times. My parents found out and were very angry. My dad directly scolded me, "I think you are really hopeless. Such a good marriage prospect, are you blind not to seize it?" My dad turned around and scolded my mom. "Look at the kind of daughter you raised. She has no sense of the bigger picture. What do you do all day, playing cards and getting beauty treatments? You can't even teach your children properly. What use are you?" I was forced to date Andrew Stone. Having my will suppressed was a very painful thing. At that time, a friend in our circle had a birthday party, and everyone went to her mansion to have fun. Albert also went. I guess I read too many novels. I came up with a bold idea. If I slept with Albert and got caught, I would definitely be able to marry him. Because wealthy families care a lot about reputation. If I slept with someone, the Stone family definitely wouldn't want me to marry in. My parents would feel humiliated but would still agree to let me marry Albert. Albert is a good man, he would definitely take responsibility for me. At that time, feeling hopeless about my love life and being forced to date Andrew Stone, I was very depressed and had a moment of madness, deciding to go through with it. That night, I clearly saw Albert enter room 302. I first returned to my own room, drank half a bottle of wine, and then went to his room. At that time, everyone had been drinking. When I entered the room, it was very dark. I didn't dare to turn on the light. He was sleeping on the bed. I called his name, "Albert?" He responded with a grunt. Then I started crying as I told him I had liked him for many years, and asked if he would marry me. His head was buried in the blanket. Only one hand was exposed. His hand was very pale, with long fingers, well-defined joints, smooth and soft to the touch. I held his hand, feeling a surge of tenderness in my heart. He didn't say much. I cried while kissing his hand, then I slipped under the blanket and started kissing him. Actually, I had thought about it. If he didn't want to marry me, I wouldn't force him. But I wanted to be with him. I wanted to give him my first time. A girl's first time is very precious, and I wanted to give it to the person I liked. That night he was very gentle. I had also drunk quite a bit. Without getting myself drunk, I was afraid I wouldn't have a good excuse the next day for having walked into the wrong room. I felt so happy, as if I was bubbling over with joy. I also thought he must have liked me. But the next day, when I woke up, I saw Andrew Stone's face. I was woken up by the voices of a group of people. Andrew's friends had come in to call him to leave with them. And then the news spread. Our marriage was set. At that time, I was completely confused. Andrew was very gentlemanly, asking everyone to leave, helping me get dressed, and apologizing, saying he drank too much last night and forgot what happened. He asked if I remembered. I had to say I didn't know either. He said it must be fate. He held my hand, and I felt very strange. I wanted to pull away, but he didn't let go. I mustered the courage to tell my mom that I didn't want to marry him. My mom said I was out of my mind, saying I had already climbed into his bed, and if I didn't marry him, no decent person would marry me in the future. My dad was even angrier, slapped me, and said if I dared to offend the Stone family, he would make my life miserable. They knew I liked Albert. Liking someone is really hard to hide. As soon as Albert appeared, my eyes would follow him. My parents warned me that they would rather send me to a mental hospital than let me be with an illegitimate child. The main reason was that they believed Albert wouldn't get the inheritance from the Smith family, while Andrew Stone had already become the heir of the Stone family. I am unwilling to accept this. I went to find Albert. I hemmed and hawed, talking about everything but the main point for a long time. Actually, I wanted to ask him if he could be with me. Are fame and fortune really that important? Even without a lot of money, as long as I can be with the person I like, we can get by with 3 meals a day. I wanted to say, could he give up his grand ambitions and be with me? I really like him. Just thinking about not being with him makes me hide in the bathroom and cry. He is someone who really knows how to listen. Even though I didn't say anything, or I said some nonsense like the weather has been nice lately, how's work, I'm about to graduate and preparing for exams. I told him about my salary. He must have found it funny. But I had nothing else to say. I didn't know what to say to make him stay. Or to tempt him to be with me. To give up everything about the Smith family. He sat quietly across from me the whole time. Sometimes he stirred his long cold coffee. Sometimes he looked at me intently. In his gaze, there was something I could call compassion. I kept forcing a smile, trying to stay upbeat. In the end, I was about to cry, but I held it back. It was a Sunday. He held my hand for the first time. He said, "I want to take you somewhere." The moment he turned around, I cried. But he couldn't see it. Because he was walking ahead, holding my hand. I followed him, not thinking about anything. I hoped the road would be long enough for us to walk our whole lives. But actually, it wasn't long. Because the cafe we met at was very close to the Smith Company building. He took me up the elevator, straight to the top floor. Even on weekends, many people at Smith Company come in to work overtime. We stood on the rooftop, the wind rustling in our ears. We could overlook the entire city of the capital. I am a bit afraid of heights. But he wasn't scared. Standing there, looking at everything beneath his feet. He looked at me and said, "When I was a kid, people called me a fatherless bastard. My mom told me, if I stood on the 100th floor, I wouldn't hear those insults. That was when I swore I would stand at the highest point." Do you understand my ambition? I understand. But I don't quite understand it in some way. Just like when I read The Thorn Birds. The priest died in the end. So why couldn't he stop for the heroine in his life? But then again, his life was always going to end. Why should he stop for the heroine instead of pursuing his dreams? It's also a kind of silent refusal. Later, he got engaged even earlier than I did. He got engaged to the daughter of a bank president. In front of her, I was reduced to nothing. Marrying anyone is just marrying. So later, I married Andrew Stone. I don't know if Andrew knows that I like Albert. I also don't know why he married me. I am just a vase by his side, a puppet on strings. I am still very afraid of him. Even after being married to him for 3 years. His demeanor is what scares me. And I really have nothing to say to him. He gives me gifts, takes me out to play, and is affectionate with me. But I feel he's very fake. Like he's wearing a mask. His true self must be very frightening. I don't like sleeping with him either. Because I don't like him, I don't want to sleep with him. Moreover, his needs are very high. It doesn't help if I refuse, he always follows his own rhythm. So, I feel like I'm not his wife. Just his plaything. It's just that he has legal rights over me. I feel more like an object. Sold by my parents, bought by him. Fortunately, I found a job. As an arbitrator, I can work overtime every day. Sometimes I can avoid marital life. These 3 years of marriage. I've had almost no contact with Albert. I hear about him from others. He has been doing well. He wasn't in the capital much before. Running the international market or working on projects in other cities. Recently, he returned to the Smith Group, in a core position. Old Mr. Smith's health is failing now, and the power struggle within the Smith family has reached a boiling point. Albert seems to be one of the winners. When Andrew took me to the Smith family to visit the old man, Albert was there too. He was more mature and charming than before. He greeted us lightly. In front of everyone, old Mr. Smith announced his will. Albert indeed got the majority share. I don't know how he managed to defeat his brothers, father, and uncles in just a few years to become the head of the Smith Group. His abilities are indeed evident. On the way back, I leaned back in my seat, thinking about the dreams Albert once told me. Has he now achieved them? Andrew was driving. He asked, "What are you thinking about?" Whenever he speaks, I always feel a kind of cold distance, or coolness. I weakly said, not feeling well. "What do you want for dinner?" "Whatever." Old Mr. Smith died. It rained when I attended the funeral. I strangely felt a sense of romance. I went with Andrew. He was pulled away to talk midway. I stood outside waiting for him. As I caught the falling rain, someone came up beside me. I turned to look, my heart started pounding. It was Albert. He, like me, was catching the falling rain with his hand. I was so stiff I didn't dare move. He asked me, "How have you been since you got married?" I didn't react and just said, "Ah." He turned to look at me, a smile on his lips. I could see he was in a good mood. He said, "Can I hug you?" Before I could say anything, he hugged me. His cold scent enveloped me. I felt frozen. He hugged me tightly. Maybe because his grandfather died. He was very sad. Or perhaps, he was very happy. It felt like a century. Or maybe just a second. He let go of me, ruffled my hair, and said, "I finished reading that book, The Thorn Birds." I stood still. That book was his birthday gift from me. An old book. Because I cried while reading it, the pages were stained with my tears. At that time, I told him, "When you finish it, you must tell me, if you were the priest, what would you choose?" He never answered me. After all, I was not his Maggie. Or maybe, he had already shown me his answer through his actions. Not long after, Albert took over the Smith Group, becoming the young ruler of the Smith family. He also canceled his 3-year engagement. I looked at his handsome figure in the financial newspaper, and my heart reignited with the courage to fly into the fire like a moth. Even without Albert, I still wanted a divorce. Mainly because spending a lifetime with Andrew, I would definitely regret it when I die. Albert achieved his dreams. I had no dreams. But I wanted to live the life I wanted. And not a life that went against my will. The girls in our office envied me for marrying into a wealthy family, with a husband who was both handsome and rich. But I envied them. Although they weren't as wealthy, their lives were in their own hands. If it were me, I would rather live in a small house, go to work regularly, come home to cook, and then quietly eat alone, watch dramas, and read books. On weekends, I would lazily sleep in. I think I would like that kind of life. Instead of living like now, where every day feels like a performance. Dressing up glamorously, meeting all sorts of people, saying grandiose things. Showing a loving relationship with Andrew. When I get home, I still have to smile at him. And satisfy his perverted desires. Or when he looks at me, I always feel like I'm being watched by a teacher. Sometimes, I can't help but think, if I divorced Andrew, maybe Albert and I would be together. Maybe. What if? Even if we're not together, it's okay. At least I'd be free. I can't be the one to propose a divorce with Andrew. Without a legitimate reason, people would just think I'm crazy. So, I found an agent. She has many girls who want to marry into a wealthy family. I hired 2 maids at home. I couldn't get involved in Andrew's company. But those 2 maid positions, I sold them. Each position for $2 million. Those women outside are really willing to spend money. But you can't catch a wolf without sacrificing a child. I took the money and felt at ease. They paid a high price for the opportunity, so they would definitely hold on to it tightly. To give them opportunities, I worked overtime every day. The good thing about this job is that you can work overtime every day, there's always endless work. I could avoid going home, and it was a completely legitimate reason. But after working overtime for a month, those 2 maids still made no progress. At 10 p.m., when I walked in, the house was brightly lit. Everyone was there. Including the police. I was startled. Andrew sat in the main seat, and the butler stood trembling with the servants. Only the 2 of us lived in this villa, but there were quite a few servants. When he saw me come back, his gaze immediately turned towards me, making my heart shiver. His face looked very unpleasant. I hurried over and asked considerately, "Honey, what's wrong?" He pointed to one of the girls I hired. He asked me, "Did you hire her?" I said, "A friend recommended her." "Which friend?" I bit my lip, not daring to speak. The police took the person away. Andrew told the old butler, "You're fired too." After saying that, he turned and went upstairs. The old butler had worked for the Stone family for decades. Hearing this, the old butler cried and said to me, "Madam, please plead for me. I only hired them because you told me to." The old butler immediately pointed to the other maid and said, "You're fired too, leave immediately." He then directed the others to clean the house. Andrew didn't go to the master bedroom he usually slept in. Instead, he went to another room. I was a bit scared. Did he find out something? When I went in, he was taking a shower. This room was originally the mistress's bedroom. But after we got married, we didn't sleep in separate rooms. It was all just for show. It looked like a luxurious palace. Like a glamorous birdcage. I wanted to sit on the sofa and rest for a while. Working overtime for so long, I was really tired. Just as I sat down, the bell rang from the bathroom. Every time he rang the bell, it meant he wanted me to go and serve him. I didn't want to go. I was very tired. And those two maids must have failed to seduce him. He had a cleanliness obsession. He thought women outside were dirty. I should have known this long ago. The bell rang again, like a death knell. Then he opened the door with a dark face, and his voice coldly asked me, "Are you deaf?" He startled me, and I felt like he was going to hit me. I stood up timidly. He stared at me with a deep gaze. "Come here." I hurried over. I had no choice, I was used to being dominated. He threw a set of clothes at me and said, "Put it on, come wash me." It was a medieval-style made outfit with lace edges. He wanted to play that game again. Tears immediately welled up in my eyes. I really didn't know when this kind of life would end. Couldn't I live my own life? The life now was not what I wanted at all. He needed a wife who would kneel on the ground. I needed a quiet life alone. I clutched the exquisite maid outfit, not moving. He pulled me in and roughly stripped off my clothes. In the end, he was in a very bad mood, and it hurt me a lot. He seemed to be filled with anger and resentment. I was just his punching bag. When it was over, I was covered in bruises, and my knees hurt a lot. Tears flowed uncontrollably again. I glanced at the time, it was 4 a.m. There were 2 arbitration cases to be heard in court tomorrow morning. I envied those girls in the office, although we were about the same age, they were so happy and relaxed. When I was crying behind Andrew, he suddenly turned me around, still visibly angry, and coldly asked, "Why are you crying? Sleeping with me, does it wrong you?" I didn't even have the right to cry. I sniffled and choked, "Let's get a divorce." His voice sounded like it crawled out of hell. "What did you say?" After saying that, I felt both regret and relief. I wanted to repeat it, but under his gaze, I didn't dare to speak again. He turned on the light, indicating he wasn't going to sleep and wanted to talk. "What did you just say?" I sat up with a heavy heart and said weakly, I want a divorce." I clutched the blanket tightly and whispered, "Anyway, without me, you can still marry many young and beautiful girls." He responded with a non-committal sound, looking at me with a half-smile, and asked, "So what did I do wrong that you want a divorce?" I didn't know how to answer. In the eyes of others, at least he wasn't cheating, wasn't abusive, and he was powerful and handsome. I should be grateful. But I don't love him. Just because someone has good qualities doesn't mean I will love him. And he doesn't necessarily have much affection for me either. Maybe he just likes my body. After all, he loves to play. I didn't answer, and he sneered. "Is it because Albert Smith broke off his engagement and you're itching to be with him?" I looked at him in surprise. How did he know I liked Albert? My parents knew, but they wouldn't tell anyone. These years, I rarely saw Albert. Life felt like a stagnant pool. I felt like a walking corpse. How did he find out? He looked at me with a deep gaze and asked, "Do you have no heart?" Married to me for 3 years, still thinking about a man who gave you up for inheritance rights? Oh, no, not only do you have no heart, you have no brain either. I felt a chill all over my body. What are you talking about? His gaze was full of ridicule and condescending pity. Do you know why you ended up in his room that year, but it was me inside? My tears fell instantly. I always thought it was just some mistake or they happened to switch rooms. That's why I ended up in the wrong bed. Afterwards, I couldn't verify it. I could only accept it, and coincidentally, I was on a blind date with Andrew. His cold, metallic voice rang out. "That's because your crush knew you liked him, but also saw that I was interested in you, so he made a deal with me. As long as I helped him secure the inheritance from the Smith family, he would give you to me." He sneered. "How touching, right? So that night, you did it on purpose?" He raised an eyebrow. "Of course, don't you know how much I like your body?" I bit my lip, glanced at him, and then lowered my eyes. I felt like my heart had died. I was just a clown. I thought I had a sincere love for Albert. He was the most beautiful part of my mundane life, but he pushed me to another man with his own hands. All for his ambition. Without considering my wishes. He was no different from my parents. Andrew was the same. He treated me like a commodity, a pet he bought to play with. I forced myself to stand up despite my trembling legs. I want a divorce, I said. As I spoke, I prepared to leave. I didn't know where I could go. I had quite a bit of assets under my name. But before, aside from my parents' home, I had only lived here and never stayed anywhere else. I thought of the office and decided to sleep there for a few hours before getting up to work. With a clear plan of what I needed to do next, I regained my composure. Being informed about Albert's true nature, I had given up hope. Just as well, I could start a new life without any distractions. Though I was still very sad. He grabbed my hand. "Where are you going?" "I'm leaving you," I said. "I want a divorce." He smiled slightly and asked politely, "Kaylee Bush, who do you think I am? Do you think you can come and go as you please here?" I tried to break free from his grip, but he didn't budge. He pushed me onto the bed. "Still have the energy to mention divorce?" I must have been too lenient. With that, he started to undress me again. When I woke up the next day, it was already broad daylight. I was definitely late. I tried to sit up but had no strength at all. I suspected I was sick. Remembering the work I had in the morning, my anxiety surged. I tried to get out of bed, only to find a golden chain around my ankle. The chain was long, with the other end locked to the bed. I was shocked. At that moment, Andrew, dressed in a suit, came in from outside. "Awake? What are you doing?" I broke down. I still have to go to work. Thinking of the court session that morning, and how I was late, I was sure to be complained about to death. He smiled and said, "Honey, don't worry, I got you leave from work, and I had someone take care of your tasks." I frowned. How can that be? Others are also busy. "Let me go. Are you crazy? Are you imprisoning me? What do you take me for?" He seemed in a good mood. "You're my wife. I was planning to have you resign." Surprise? You've been working overtime every day, and I've been annoyed for a long time. Now you want to make a fuss, right? Then don't go to work. I looked at him in horror. He didn't seem to be joking at all. "You can't do this," I murmured. "Are you going to lock me up like livestock?" "Why not?" He leaned in, kissed my lips gently, and said, "Locking you up is the only way you'll behave." I looked into his dark eyes and said, "This is your true nature." He usually seemed so upright, but he was actually very bad behind the scenes. "Who forced me to become like this?" He squeezed my neck. "Wasn't it you, this fickle woman? After marrying me, you think about other men every day. I thought that over time, you would live well with me, but what happened? As soon as he annulled the engagement, you wanted to divorce me. Do you think you're so desirable? Would he want a divorced woman? Are you so charming that he would go against the Stone family for you?" My heart felt icy cold. I never wanted to be with him. I just don't want to be with you anymore." I said angrily, "I'm not desirable, but you're a pervert. I don't want to be your plaything anymore." "Is that so? Then try and see if you can leave me." Andrew left. The old butler came to bring me food. He looked at me as if he wanted to say something but hesitated. Finally, he said, "Madam, please don't argue with Mr. Stone anymore, or it won't end well for you. Why cause trouble when you could be living a good life?" I was despondent. "He didn't fire you?" The old butler's face lit up with joy. "Mr. Stone said if I perform well and make up for my mistakes, he won't fire me." "Perform what?" "Look after you, madam." "How long does he plan to keep me locked up?" The old butler hesitated again, then said, "Madam, someone like Mr. Stone can make a person disappear without a trace. He doesn't want you to leave now, so you have to listen to him. Otherwise, if you anger him, you..." I was locked in the bedroom without any electronic devices. Even if I had them, I couldn't get out. Because no one would help me. My family would definitely side with Andrew. They would even scold me, thinking I act on whims. As for others, I don't have that kind of relationship with them. Calling the police. Don't even think about it. It's useless. On the first day, I wanted to wait him out, to see how long he could keep me locked up. He continued with his life as usual. At night, he became even more perverse. On the second day, I started to get anxious. Because I wanted to go to work. Thinking about the mountains of work piling up made me restless. I realized that Andrew, this pervert, felt great keeping me locked up here. He had no intention of letting me out. I had no choice but to compromise. When he came to undress me again, I took the initiative to kiss him. He was stunned for a moment, then kissed me back more fiercely, laughing, "Now you're being good." I swallowed hard and pleaded with him, "Honey, let me go. I need to go to work. Do you still want a divorce?" I quickly replied, "No, no." He whispered something in my ear, then said with a half smile, "If you do it, I'll forgive you this time." I bit my lip and nodded in humiliation. I finally went to work. I felt much more at ease. I realized that the thing I couldn't afford to lose the most was my job. Otherwise, I would feel like a drifting duckweed. My colleagues were all concerned about my health. Fortunately, some colleagues had already helped me handle the cases from the previous 2 days. I just needed to finish the paperwork. Luckily, I had worked overtime like crazy for a month before, so there wasn't much piled up work. After finishing my tasks, it was time to get off work. My colleagues invited me to dinner and shopping. But I couldn't go. To get Andrew and his family to agree to let me work, I promised him I would go straight home after work. Because they believed that once a woman is married, she should stay at home, take care of her husband and children, attend social events, or enjoy life at home. There was no need to go out and work, which they thought was unnecessary suffering and not good for maintaining marital relationships. If both people were busy with work, how could they cultivate their relationship? I was very unhappy about this at the time. Because when Andrew and I had our wedding, it was right after graduation. I had secured a job in the public sector, something I had achieved on my own, and I wasn't going to give it up. At that time, I was still very afraid of him. I didn't dare to talk to him directly. I could only type out my words. I remember typing a long message, telling him how important this job was to me. I had to go. I also promised it wouldn't affect our family life, and I would come straight home after work. At that time, he only replied with a simple word, "Okay." After finishing my work, I didn't want to leave. I just sat there, contemplating my life. The conclusion was, I was done for. If I didn't have a stable job, then I could run away. I didn't believe that if I ran, he could find me. But I didn't want to give up my job. So, I could only compromise. I didn't want to go home and see that pervert. So I continued to work overtime. I even did the work that wasn't urgent. By 10 p.m., Andrew called. I answered. "Come home." I said, "I have to work overtime." Before, on my birthday, he asked me what my wish was. I said my wish was to be able to work seriously, and not be disturbed while working overtime. Since then, as long as I used the excuse of working overtime to stay in the office, he wouldn't say anything. He hung up the phone. I felt it was getting late. And I was a bit tired. So I lay down on the desk to rest. I wondered what the chances were that I could live in the office. Living here, I could work and wouldn't have to go home to see Andrew. All the time would be my own. I could daydream as much as I wanted. Just as I was deep in thought, I suddenly heard footsteps. The security guard brought Andrew in. The security guard enthusiastically said, "Miss Bush, your husband is here to pick you up," so I brought him up directly. The security guard said this and then left. Andrew came in and closed the door. He had been here before, even treated my colleagues to a meal, asking them to look after me. After he came, my colleagues thought even more that I was untouchable, saying I was just experiencing life by working. I quickly pretended to be very busy and said, "Ah, you came to pick me up?" "I'm not done yet." He responded with a hum, lay down on the sofa in my office, rested his head on his hands, and stared at me saying, "Then you keep working." I glanced at him and quickly pretended to work on the computer. But I couldn't concentrate anymore because after a certain point of working overtime, I couldn't focus. After thinking for a bit, I said, "Let's just go back." He said, "Okay." I grabbed my bag, and just as I was about to open the door, he hugged me from behind, saying, "I want to do it here with yo." I couldn't struggle free. It was too embarrassing. Andrew is just a pervert. When we got in the car, I started crying. The driver was driving. We were sitting in the back. He seemed helpless, feeling like I was making a fuss over nothing. "Why are you crying? Isn't this normal between a husband and wife?" He hugged me to comfort me. I cried uncontrollably. For my past. For the misplaced feelings. For my present and future. I couldn't escape this demon. I cried all the way back. I didn't eat dinner. I couldn't eat. When I got home, I fell asleep immediately. Andrew was very unhappy. "Go take a shower." I got up and said, "I'll sleep in the guest room." "Kaylee Bush, don't you understand what I'm saying?" I got angry too. "I'm not going." I took off my socks and threw them at his face. He looked furious. I felt a secret pleasure. In the end, I couldn't resist him, and he dragged me to the bathroom. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't muster up any energy to do anything. Except for work, which I can still finish. Other times, all I want to do is lie down. My mother-in-law was especially displeased because I wouldn't go to her parties, and I wouldn't accompany her to social events. The housekeeper informed me that my mother-in-law was here and asked me to go downstairs. I had no strength at all and said, "I'm not feeling well." My mother-in-law soon stormed upstairs, ready to scold me. Before, I would stand there like a timid daughter-in-law, trembling and listening to her scold. Like a grandchild. Now, it was the same. But now I was lying down. She scolded me about how to be a good daughter-in-law, how to serve Andrew, and how I hadn't had a child after 3 years of marriage. I just lay there crying. I don't remember when she left. Anyway, I cried until I was exhausted and fell asleep. Andrew went on a business trip. For the whole weekend, I stayed in bed and didn't eat. I wasn't trying to starve myself. I just had no interest in eating. On Monday, I got up to go to work. I felt a bit dizzy. But I pushed through. The butler brought me breakfast, and I felt nauseous after eating. The butler hinted that I might be pregnant. But my period had just ended. When I got to the office, I felt much better. I started working seriously. I ate a little at noon and threw it all up in the afternoon. In the evening, I felt more energetic. So I started working overtime. I thought work was great. Andrew came to my office again. He saw me and frowned. "Have you eaten?" When I saw him, I immediately started crying. Heartbroken. Anyone who didn't know would think he had died. He was even more confused. I cried all the way back. Then I cried at night too. He fed me, and I threw it all up. It was all clear water. I felt extremely nauseous. But seeing him like that, I tasted the pleasure of revenge. I knew I was definitely sick. Andrew even took me to the hospital for a checkup. Besides malnutrition, there was nothing else wrong. In the end, the doctor subtly pointed to his head, implying that I was crazy. Andrew didn't take me to a mental hospital. Someone like him cares a lot about reputation. He wouldn't want people to think his wife was crazy. Even though he himself was crazy. He drove home. I went upstairs listlessly. Just as I was about to enter the room, he grabbed my hand from behind and dragged me to the study. I struggled and started crying out of grievance again. In the study, I cried, and he handed me tissues. I didn't take them. After crying enough, I asked him, "What do you want?" "If there's nothing, I want to sleep. I'm very tired here." He held me down and said gently, "Honey, what's wrong with you?" "Nothing." He hugged me gently. "Did someone upset you? Did my mom say something to you again?" I didn't even have the strength to push him away. I let him hold me. The one who bullied me the most was him. And he had the nerve to ask me, The next day, I didn't get out of bed. When I woke up, I was in the hospital, receiving a nutrient for. Andrew was beside me, looking at me with concern. I glanced at him and asked, "What time is it?" "I need to go to work." He looked at his watch. "It's 11 o'clock. I've taken a leave for you." I painfully got up and went to the office. I felt like I should die at my workstation. Only work is reliable. People are the most unreliable. Andrew asked me, "Do you want a divorce?" I glanced at him and said casually, "I'm okay with it." He said, "All right, let's get a divorce." He was quite tough about it. When he came to pick me up in the evening, he handed me a divorce certificate. My mood instantly brightened, and then I burst into tears of joy. I was finally free. I immediately bought a small apartment in the neighborhood next to the office. It was really small. Then I quickly moved in. Andrew asked me not to tell anyone about our divorce for now, because he wanted to save face. I didn't want to tell anyone either. I had gained my freedom. My new home was already nicely decorated by the previous owner. I only bought some soft furnishings and hired 2 people to help me set it up, and now it looks much better. I felt revitalized. My mood suddenly improved. I really didn't know why I used to cry every day. But I didn't want to think about the past anymore. I got a cat and also a dog. I grew many flowers. I bought my own books and gradually filled my home. I also went to the furniture market, bought beautiful pumpkin lanterns, and various decorations. Looking at my completely new and entirely my own home, I finally felt much more at ease. I took my dog for a walk every day. Life was still so routine. I hadn't seen Andrew for several weeks. I thought it was great. I never wanted to see him again in this life. But actually, he hadn't done anything bad to me. But being with him was suffocating. On Friday after work, I went home, preparing to cook dinner myself. I liked doing things myself. In the end, I burned 3 dishes. Coincidentally, the smell of delicious food wafted over from next door. It smelled like stir-fried pork with chili. I swallowed my saliva. I fed my cat and dog with their food, resignedly opened my phone, and prepared to order takeout. But I didn't like eating takeout. Just then, there was a knock on the door. I frowned. No one knew I lived here. I looked through the peephole and, surprisingly, it was Andrew. I didn't want to open the door. Then he sent me a message. "I made food, there's extra." I opened the door. He said coldly, "Take it and eat. I don't want my ex-wife to starve to death." After saying that, he handed me the lunchbox and turned to leave. I opened it and, lo and behold, it was the delicious home-cooked food I had smelled earlier. I thought about it and decided to eat it. While eating, I messaged him, "What are you doing here?" He replied, "Wanted to experience the life of a poor person." I rolled my eyes. We weren't enemies after all. Coincidentally, my office had arranged for me to go for business training for a week, and there would be no one to take care of my cat and dog. I asked Andrew, "Are you still living there?" He replied, "Yes." I said, "I'm going for training, can you take care of my cat and dog?" Then I sent him a $200 red packet. He accepted it and replied, "Okay." On the day I went for training, I took a minibus from the company entrance to the airport with my colleagues. Andrew was holding the dog, seeing me off to the bus. I reminded him about the frequency of feeding the dog and the cat. He nodded. He said, "Take care of yourself, call me if you need anything." I bit my lip and looked at him. I didn't say anything. I don't have many friends. Now I feel that divorcing him was a bit hasty. When I need help, I still end up turning to him. I got on the bus, and as it slowly started moving, his figure became smaller and smaller. I sat up straight. A colleague teased me, "Can't bear to leave your husband, huh?" I smiled a bit. Then they started talking about everyone's love life. I was quite envious. The place we went to this time was quite beautiful. Although I had been here before, my mood was different now, and my perspective had changed. After class, I took quite a few photos. Couldn't find anyone to share them with. Andrew often sent me photos of the cat and dog. So, I sent him the photos I took. The two of us are friends now, I guess. After all, for someone as high and mighty as the head of the Stone family to feed my cat and dog, and often bring me home-cooked meals, it made me feel quite comfortable. One day, I curiously asked him, "Did you really cook these meals yourself?" He raised an eyebrow. "Come over tonight and watch me cook." I pouted. The dog kept wagging its tail at him. It was very close to him. On Saturday afternoon, he knocked on my door. I asked, "What's up?" "Going to buy groceries." He asked me, "Do you want to come?" I hesitated for a moment but decided to join in on the fun. Someone like him, going grocery shopping? We walked to a supermarket, he pushed the cart and started picking out vegetables. I followed beside him. He looked quite experienced. I said, "You know how to pick vegetables?" He said matter-of-factly, "When I was studying abroad, I often cooked for myself." "Why didn't you hire a maid?" I wanted to live independently. Live independently? I've never lived independently. When I was studying, I relied on my parents. After getting married, I lived with him. Now, I'm finally living alone. It's great. After buying the groceries, we went back. He said, "You can bring the dog over, it likes here." I went back to get the dog and went to his place, watching him cook. He really had some skills, washing, chopping, and stir-frying the vegetables in an orderly manner. When the delicious food was on the table, I was already salivating. After we finished eating, he said to me, "Let's go, take the dog for a walk." Fortunately, my Samoyed was still small, so we could walk slowly. On the way, an electric scooter sped by and almost hit me. Andrew quickly pulled me aside. Then he protected me, walking on the innermost side of the sidewalk. His hand was still on my shoulder. I struggled a bit. He commanded, "Walk properly." In life, he was a very domineering person. Once we entered the park, he let go of me. Neither of us spoke. The evening breeze blew gently. Many people were out walking with their children. He held my hand again. I looked at him. He lowered his eyes to look at me. "This time, let me pursue you again, all right?" It was really strange, he actually asked for my opinion. I looked elsewhere, and he pressed my head against his chest, whispering, "I was wrong before. I shouldn't have confined you. I shouldn't have been harsh to you." My tears started to fall. Because no one had ever apologized for hurting me. They didn't even think it was a kind of harm. They thought it was for my own good. But the most unlikely person to apologize, Andrew, was now apologizing to me. Although he was probably like a weasel paying respects to the chicken, with no good intentions. But I could only cling to this lifeline. Hugging him and crying my grievances out. Andrew really started to pursue me again. Although I still felt strange about it. I just didn't like his type. He looked a bit intimidating. But he did have a way of pleasing people. Now he knew to ask for my opinion. He made me breakfast and dinner. Accompanied me to walk the dog. Even helped me clean the house. Sometimes he wanted to kiss me, but I didn't want to, and he didn't force it. In the past, such a thing was unthinkable. If I didn't want to, he would get angry. He would look at me with a fierce gaze, using his presence to oppress me. Now, he would smile and say, "If you don't want to, I won't force you." He was soon going to move in with me. But he would sleep on the sofa. Originally there were 2 rooms, but I had turned the other one into a study. He didn't like staying in there. I let him be. In fact, I wasn't used to suddenly living alone either, because I would get scared at night. Andrew, though annoying, might really be the person who treated me the best in this world. Sometimes, watching him quietly lying on the sofa, I wanted to go and hug him. After all, his embrace was very secure. But I was afraid he would be the same as before. If we got back together, he might start to oppress me again, treating me as his possession. When Andrew got off work on Wednesday, he texted me, saying we should go out for dinner and that he would come to pick me up. I agreed. As soon as I stepped out of the office building, I saw his car and him waiting by the side. At that moment, he stood tall and handsome in his suit, a faint smile appearing on his handsome face when he saw me. My heart started beating a little faster. If only he could always be this good. Just as I was about to walk over, I heard someone call me, Arbitrator Bush. I was startled. From the shadow of the corner, a man with a haggard face and a sinister look in his eyes emerged. He was holding a watermelon knife and came straight at me. In that split second, I remembered that man. He worked as a security guard and was fired by the company. He demanded compensation. But the company presented evidence of him playing cards and sleeping on the job, proving that his dismissal was justified, and only gave him his wages. He had always claimed he was wronged and said I was in cahoots with the company. When he charged at me, I was scared to death. But my whole body was so stiff that I couldn't move. I thought I was done for. I even thought about what the news headline would say. 25-year-old arbitrator killed with one stab. I closed my eyes in fear. But the expected pain didn't come. Instead, I felt a warm and familiar embrace holding me. I opened my eyes to see Andrew holding me, looking at me with a face full of worry. His right hand was gripping the watermelon knife. The man who tried to kill me had been kicked to the ground and was being held down by Andrew's bodyguards. Andrew's right hand was gushing with blood. To the hospital, quickly! I supported him and helped press down near his heart to stop the bleeding. The wound on his hand was deep. I could see the bone. He didn't say a word, but his forehead was covered in sweat. His face was also very pale. I wanted to call his mother. But he stopped me. If you tell them, how will you go to work? I bit my lip, looking at him through my tear-filled eyes. He touched my head with his left hand, looking at me with deep affection. All right, don't cry. I'm fine. Don't tell Mom, or she'll scold you again. I gently leaned on his shoulder, holding him, my tears soaking his shirt. That man was arrested. Attempted murder. The evidence was conclusive. It would take a long time for Andrew's hand to heal. The company understood that I was traumatized and granted me a week's leave. I took the opportunity to take care of him. His parents and family soon found out about his injury. In the hospital room, his mother gave me a look of disappointment but said nothing. His father eventually said, Kaylee should have bodyguards from now on. We both returned to the villa. We hadn't been back for nearly 3 months, and it felt a bit unfamiliar. Luckily, they don't know about our divorce, or who knows what kind of commotion it would cause. Every day, I feed Andrew, wash his face, and even bathe him. Each time, he looks at me with deep affection. I feel a bit embarrassed. When I'm giving him a bath, he immediately gets excited. I glance at him and ask, do you need help? He looks at me deeply, this isn't right, I don't want to force you. I bite my lip and whisper, it's not forcing. He immediately kisses me. After everything was cleaned up, I looked for birth control pills. We didn't use protection just now. He stopped me, if we have a child, let's keep it, okay? I looked at him. It was him who didn't want kids before. I never refused to have children. He didn't like kids. I didn't expect him to want a child now. I held him and fell asleep. We moved back to the villa. The security system in the previous neighborhood wasn't as good. And driving home directly from work is safer than walking. At least there's a security check to enter the workplace. I soon got pregnant. My mother-in-law was particularly happy. She kept saying I was a great contributor. Andrew asked me for the divorce certificate to exchange for a new marriage certificate. I gave it to him. He quickly got a new marriage certificate. It looked just like the previous one. He held my hand as we walked from our building to his parents' villa for dinner. The evening breeze blew gently. His silhouette remained broad and resolute. Holding my hand, his fingers were still distinct and carried a soft warmth. He walked in front, and I just needed to follow his steps. I remembered my teenage years, hoping to walk like this with Albert Smith. But it didn't happen. Now, with Andrew, my wish had come true. Everything seemed unchanged. Yet, everything seemed different. Andrew's perspective. Andrew fell in love with Kaylee Bush at first sight. At that time, he had just returned from abroad to take over the family business. But he saw that Kaylee liked that illegitimate son of the Smith family. Her eyes always followed Albert Smith. She didn't notice anyone else at all. He originally wanted to give up. But their social circles overlapped. The elite circles liked to hold banquets and gatherings. So everyone could get to know each other. It was hard for him not to see her. His mother noticed that he liked her. She advised him, that girl is indeed pretty, but her family background is lacking. She has many siblings, and her abilities are quite average. She won't be able to help you in the future. Of course, he knew these things. But emotions aren't transactions with a clear price tag. If he could control his feelings, he would. His family still arranged a blind date with Kaylee. He thought he had to try. He believed he was not worse than Albert Smith. Even better in many ways. But she had no feelings for him at all. She wouldn't even come out when he asked her out. He was a bit angry. He never failed to get what he wanted. But he didn't want to break ties. Didn't want to lose face. When things didn't work out with her, he turned his attention to Albert Smith. He lied to her. Actually, he was the one who approached Albert Smith. He developed a software to monitor her phone and saw her browsing history. Will forcing the person you like to marry you bring happiness? What preparations should be made for the first time to avoid pain? He also noticed she bought condoms. At gatherings, she acted sneaky and looked anxious. He saw through her intentions at a glance. She wanted to force Albert Smith to marry her. When she saw him, she quickly avoided him. As if he were a dangerous beast. He tightly gripped his wine glass. Not knowing what he was angry about. He found Albert and asked directly, "Do you know Kaylee likes you?" Albert was stunned for a moment, his expression hostile, and said, "What does it have to do with you?" Andrew said indifferently, "She is my blind date." Albert's expression immediately became wary, and he said, "She is very innocent, not suitable for you." Andrew smiled, "I can introduce you to the bank president. He values the abilities of young people the most, and he has an unmarried daughter." If Albert could gain the favor of the bank president, future funding issues would be nothing to worry about. His career would then be half successful. Moreover, if he had such a powerful father-in-law, his weight in his grandfather's eyes would rise to a new level. Andrew leisurely watched Albert's changing expressions. Albert gritted his teeth and said, "What are your conditions?" Andrew said, "Your room, give it to me tonight, and also, get engaged as soon as possible." Albert frowned. "What are you planning to do?" Andrew said, "She is going to confess to you tonight." Albert sat there, silent for a long time. Of course, he knew Kaylee liked him. It was impossible for him not to like her. Seeing her always circling around him, her eyes sparkling when she looked at him, cautiously being good to him, and looking at him with infinite affection. She was so wonderful. How could he not like her? But, as for love, to him, it was just that. He wouldn't give up the benefits he could get for so-called love. He only thought for a few seconds before nodding in agreement. In the dark, Andrew listened to Kaylee's heartfelt confession. He felt a bit sad. And he felt sad for Kaylee too. But he was someone who would do anything to achieve his goals. He didn't care about the process, the meat in hand was the real result. He was very fascinated by Kaylee's body. At first, what attracted him was her long, straight legs, then her unparalleled beauty, and her eyes that always carried a hint of sorrow. He liked kissing her, seeing her confused look, and being intimate with her. Under his body, they reached another world of ecstasy together. He firmly believed that as long as there was enough time and enough intimacy, physical exchanges would eventually sway her heart. He thought Kaylee's liking for Albert was just a pastime and an emotional anchor during her ignorance. It was unrealistic. But he underestimated the power of her fantasy love. She always dazed on his bed, lost in thought, always turning her back to him, sometimes even crying secretly. Anyone would get angry. Sometimes, she even called out another man's name in her dreams. He was originally a very domineering person, wanting everything to go his way. Kaylee was someone who wouldn't express herself and would endure everything, so she could only do as he said. They indeed didn't seem like a couple. More like an owner and a pet. But he felt just fine. until his little pet proposed a divorce. He really wanted to lock her up forever. Anyway, her life was controlled by him. She had no support. Albert still wanted to fight him for her. Albert said to him, "She has been with you for 3 years, and she has never been happy. Don't you know that?" Andrew looked coldly at the man in front of him. Albert said, "Let her go." Andrew smiled. "What, now that you've got the power, you still want the beauty from before?" Albert said flatly, "At least I can make her happy." Andrew immediately ordered to short his company and trouble several of his projects. Let's see if he still has time to make his wife happy. He imprisoned her and spoke of Albert's misdeeds. Of course, he exaggerated them. Kaylee felt like she was falling apart. But she quickly accepted it. She believed all men were bad. But she still wanted a divorce. However, she liked her work even more. Though he didn't understand what was so good about her job. For her job, she was willing to compromise with him. Watching her grow thinner day by day, crying every day. The doctor told him she was likely depressed. The simplest treatment was to change her environment. So he forged 2 documents, lying to her that they had divorced. He continued to install surveillance in her small apartment and monitored her phone to see if she wanted to contact Albert. Fortunately, when Albert texted her, asking to meet, she directly blocked him. That day, she sat quietly in the living room, watching the sky darken outside, silently crying on the sofa. He sat quietly in the house next to hers, smoking and watching her. What did she really want? He watched the surveillance every day. He arranged for people to follow her to and from work. Until he saw that she was terrible at cooking and couldn't even eat takeout. He couldn't stand it anymore. He cooked for her, making her eat. She still looked aggrieved, feeling he was pestering her. It almost made him explode with anger. But for his own sake, he endured it. He was almost 35. His wife was sleeping next door, and he couldn't sleep, still in the progress of pursuing her. It was a big joke. Fortunately, no one knew. He couldn't act like the gentle Albert Smith. He could only cook every day and walk the dog with her. But this kind of life wasn't so bad. Except that he couldn't have her, which made him a bit uncomfortable. Did he love Kaylee? He didn't know. But he felt she should be his. Only by his side. If she were with someone else, he would rather she be dead. He also liked watching her. Although she still habitually avoided him when she saw him. But after the divorce turmoil, she had gotten much better. His mother urged him to have children. Look at you two, does a family without children look like a family? He didn't want children. Children would take away Kaylee's love. But having children might make it more like a family. If they had a child, she might not think about escaping so easily. He thought this was good. One more child, one more layer of security. Just like her job, it pinned her down. Her child would be the same. As long as he was with her, that would be enough. Albert's perspective. In the social circles of Capital City, loving couples were rare. But Andrew Stone and Kaylee Bush were considered one. Albert watched the couple, holding their 1-year-old child, greeting guests who came to celebrate the child's first birthday. Andrew held the child in one hand and Kaylee's hand in the other. Kaylee stood beside him, smiling, occasionally looking at the child. Her face no longer showed the previous unease and loneliness. Instead, it was calm and composed, with a gentle smile. She now had the demeanor of a good wife and loving mother. She seemed like a dazzling pearl in the night, emitting a soft, gentle light. Albert couldn't help but remember the day he held her hand, standing on a high platform, her tears flowing down like a river. No one would ever like him that much again. No one would ever awkwardly confess her love to him. Even after knowing his choice, still looking at him with love and tolerance. Did he regret it? He didn't know. Ever since he tasted power, he felt like a part of his heart was empty. But if time could go back, he would still make the same choice. Albert left the noisy party and returned to his villa. The servants looked at him in fear. The villa was very quiet. At that moment, he regretted it. Meanwhile, Kaylee and Andrew were bathing their child. The little one was happily swimming with a small float. from mommy's side to daddy's side. The air was filled with his excited, milky cries. Kaylee looked at him with eyes full of love. Andrew's face also had a gentle, fatherly smile. The whole family was peaceful and happy.